The Model Shop live scale modeling show is brought to you by Tenant Controls, makers of lighting kits, soundboards, and more. Tenant Controls brings your models to life. And by HDA ModelWorks, suppliers of scale model lighting products, detail parts, and complete model kits. Visit HDAModelWorks.com today. Well, hello there everybody, and welcome to the Model Shop, the live scale modeling show here on YouTube. I'm your host, Boyd Crompton. We're here broadcasting from our shop in San Antonio, Texas, and we're glad to be back with you guys this week. We've had a couple of weeks off here from the show. Got a great little show in store for you guys tonight. We're going to start off things tonight by heading over to our Google Model Shop community and having a look at the various modeling projects that are going on over there. We've got a lot of very busy builders working on a lot of really cool stuff, and there's some interesting builds that you can see over there, and also some great modeling tips that people share in the community with what they're working on and how they're getting it done. And then tonight we're going to do some work on the bench. I get a lot of requests from fellow modelers out there. There are people that have been around modeling a long time, or some people that are starting out from the beginning about doing lighting on these models. And right now I'm working on a 1/350 scale enterprise build for a customer of mine, and he's asked me to do some kind of unique lighting on the model. So what I wanted to share with you guys tonight is to take you on the bench and show you some of the ways that I go about planning and achieving some of the kind of unique ideas or suggestions that some of my clients have, or just things that might be a little bit different from regular lighting, and how I plan that and how I kind of go about working it out. Some of these tips will be old hat for some of the people that have done lighting for experience with lighting, but if you haven't ever done any of it before, there might be some really interesting information in here for you. So we'll take you over on the bench after our little tour of the Google community. I wanted to say I hope everybody had a great Father's Day weekend last weekend. To you fathers out there, we had a great little cookout here and had a good time. So it's always good to spend a little bit of time with your family and get together whenever you can. We've got we just recently completed our 2-month-long group build on our Google community, which we had focused on. We call it our spring build. We focused on anything from movies and television. We showed you last episode some of the work that was completed. We've got a few more that have popped in, so we'll take a look at those. So we always have a lot of fun. We'll be planning something here down the road. I'm planning another 48-hour build. I'm going to post a message on the community here fairly shortly and see if we can get some ideas about what the subject might be. I think this time we're going to go with another 48-hour build, and we'll just kind of get some ideas from the people in the community about what some of the subjects they might be interested in. And we always have to keep in mind that when we do a 48-hour build, we can't, it's difficult to build a really complicated model, although I've been really surprised at some of the work that people have pulled off in that amount of time, with doing models with lighting and all kinds of cool stuff. So, but we'll talk about that here a little bit when we get into the chat session towards the end of the show. And I want to welcome everybody out there that's watching our live broadcast right now. Make sure you hop in the chat session. We've got a really great group of people in there, and they talk about all the projects that they're working on. And you can also ask questions if you have any questions about, things that you're working on or a problem you're trying to solve that you're looking for some help. So we have a great group of people that will always be willing to answer questions for you and do whatever they can. So we really appreciate those people, and it's a great friendly group. So hop in on the chat and get in on the fun. We're going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to come back and get set up. We're going to go over to the website. I'm going to get some stuff ready on the bench here, and we'll show you what we're going to be doing tonight. Basically, I've got some warp engine nacelles here, and I've got some other parts to the 1/350 scale Enterprise kit, and we're going to start getting into some detail about when you've got to install lighting in certain areas of these models. You have to, what I like to do is I kind of like to sit down and think about what my ideas are, and then kind of pre-plan everything out. You've got to figure out how you've got to get your wiring in there if we're going to have switches that are going to activate different things, that you can turn certain things off and on. So you've got to plan out all your circuits and everything, so everything can be separated, and then figure out how to pull all that off and make it look good at the same time. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to show you some of the planning that we do, and actually do some of the work here so you can see how it turns out. So we'll have a quick break here, come right back, and we'll have a look at the website community and what's going on over there. See you guys in just a couple seconds. Okay, we're back with you again. We've got some parts laid out on our bench here and got everything ready to go over there, so we'll get to that here in just a little bit, the work we're going to do on the bench tonight. Let me head on over to our Model Shop Google community. Let me bring my screen up here, and we'll have a look at what's going on over here. Always some cool stuff happening on this site. You can see right off the bat here we've got some neat little projects. We've got one with Scott Thompson here, who's working on a Federation ship model. Let's click on this and see what he's working on here. He's got a nice little, it looks like he's working on some sensor bands. He's got masking tape placed around the edge of the saucer here. This looks like it's a possibly a Reliant or something like that. Let's see if we can see what's going on here. Yeah, it looks like he's doing a custom job here. This is like a Into Darkness saucer, as far as I can tell here from the Kelvin universe, and we've got a back half added on here, which looks like part of the AMT Reliant kit. So it looks like he may be doing a kind of a Kelvin universe type ship there. You can see the side profile here. This is pretty cool. So we have people doing kit bashing and scratch building and all kinds of cool stuff. Just kind of going through the progress here of it coming together. He's getting some paint laid down on it. Looks like he'll be working on the seams. Looking pretty good there. And then we have Bill Bauer here working on the Doctor Who TARDIS, the famous time-traveling telephone booth. Let's have a look at this. Very nicely done. I'm not sure if this is actually a kit or if this is a scratch build, possibly made out of wood. That's looking pretty slick so far. If I remember right, he was on here a little down the road here asking about some advice on doing some weathering and bringing out the detail in this a little bit, and I think there were quite a few people who jumped in and gave him some good advice on that. Here we have Roger Ball building the 1/700 scale Japanese carrier Chitose. I hope I'm saying that right. Lost during the Battle of Midway. Nice looking kit here with some photo etch parts. For those of you new to the hobby, these photo etch parts that we're talking about are brass detail parts. They're printed out on a really thin sheet of brass, and they just allow you to add some super detail to your model that you might not be able to achieve with regular styrene parts because of the fine detail. And it really brings up the level of realism on your model. It takes a little while to get used to working with it, but there are lots of tutorial videos and things like that out there on YouTube and other places where you can find out about how to work with it. Looks like he's also got an aftermarket wooden deck here he's going to be putting on the model, so that should be really nice when it's finished. And maybe it already is finished here. Pretty fast work in one picture, but it's looking beautiful. You can see the wooden deck on here, and all these little items like these would be probably photo etch parts. These smaller fine items that you see here, you know, masts and antennas and things like that. Maybe some of this rigging. So very, very nice. Looks like he's doing a waterline diorama where the ship looks like it's cruising on the ocean. Very nice. Maybe in this picture here you can see some of the photo etch detail. We've got some railings here that you see. These masts, radar assembly. He said that brings up the level of realism on the model substantially working with that stuff. And we have here from John Smith working on a Klingon bird of prey, the classic green color that we saw on that. John Hunt's working on a Predator figure that he's doing a diorama, Predator versus the T-Rex. That's a pretty cool subject. Let's have a look. Wow, great paint work on this. You can see all the different shades and everything that are going on here. Probably a combination of brushing and airbrushing. That's really cool. We have Dana Church that looks like he's Got a picture of a 1/350 scale classic Enterprise build that's looking really spiffy. And we're going to be doing a little bit of the work here on the bench tonight on the exact same model, doing some lighting work up here in the nacelles and some other areas that I'm going to show you here. So that's pretty cool. We have Clint Llewellyn working on the classic Robin figure from the original Batman TV series. Omar's been working on the UGH models Phase 2 Enterprise kit, which we did a review on here a few episodes ago. And he's got that looking pretty spiffy too. It's a beautiful little 1/1000 scale resin kit. I believe if we look closely here, you can notice that there's been some what we call Aztec paneling work done here, where there's you use some subtle shades on the surface and you use some masks to create a realistic paneling effect around the surface of the saucer here. That's looking pretty cool. For those of you not familiar with Star Trek Phase 2, that was actually the TV series that the producers of Star Trek planned on coming out with after the original series was canceled, but before the Star Trek the Motion Picture came out. So there were some design changes on the Enterprise. You can see that we have kind of the more Enterprise refit looking nacelles and pylons, but we kind of have a similar shaped, you know, secondary hull here, and the saucer kind of looks the same as it did on the original TV series, but they wanted to update it a little bit just to show you that some time had gone by since the original series. Unfortunately, about 3/4 of the way into production of this TV series, it was canceled in favor of the movie. They decided to make a major motion picture once Star Wars came out, and we ended up with Star Trek the Motion Picture. So that Enterprise is a neat little piece of Star Trek Enterprise lineage, if you want to call it that, and it's cool to see that model being built. Here we have Mike Morgan, who's just built this 1/1000 scale classic Enterprise with the Botany Bay. This is a kit you can buy that comes with both of these ships, and I really like this little kit. It's a great little value for the price, and you get a really nice little stand here. Let's see if we can see maybe a better picture of the stand. Well, here's a close-up of the Enterprise. As you can see, Mike's done some weathering on that, and you have the little Botany Bay down there. Here you can kind of see what I'm talking about. It comes with this nice little base for the Enterprise to sit on, and kind of an extra little arm that comes off of it here that holds the little Botany Bay. They're both in the same scale, at 1/1000 scale, so it's a great little desktop display and really reasonably priced. You can pick this kit up at your local Hobby Lobby and use your 40% off discount there, and get you a great little Star Trek model kit to work on. That's part of the original classic episode Space Seed, where we first saw Khan, which is really cool. Really like this. Mike, you did a great job on that. Thanks for sharing that with us. I still haven't quite figured out how to keep my page from scrolling. I know some people wrote in and gave me some tips on that, but I haven't quite figured out how to do that yet, but we'll work our way through it here. We have PJC 2.0, who's got some models he built from the old television show Sequest DSV, which some of you may not have even heard of that, especially some of you younger folks, but it was quite a popular show. Had Roy Scheider in it, and who was Sheriff Brody on the classic movie Jaws, if you guys remember who that actor was. And basically it was a modern twist on Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the classic television show, where these underwater explorers had this giant submarine and these kind of accessory submarines, and they were going around exploring all the cool stuff at the bottom of the ocean. I think the show lasted a couple seasons or so, but this is the actual Sequest DSV itself. It was kind of a unique design because it was designed to be kind of organic, like almost like it was a living creature itself, and There's a couple of model kits that were produced that you can find. This is called the Stinger. This is one of their sort of one man submersibles that they had that was kind of designed almost to look like a shark body, which was kind of cool. You can see he's got the base and everything done up on this. You can also do some really nice lighting of the interior cockpit. There's a lot of detail in there, as you can see in this shot. And you can still find these kits. They were produced back in the 80s, but they still pop up on eBay and places like that, and they're not too expensive. Here's the Sequest itself, a little bit better picture of that. And I think this was the theme of the show, Beneath the Surface Lies the Future. And you can see he's got some in-scale sharks and some other cool stuff going on here, so nice job on that. Here we have John Hunt sharing a picture of his model display room. You can see he's been busy. He's been doing a lot of models with lighting. This is always fun to turn out the lights and have a look. You can see you've got the Enterprise up here, a couple versions of the Enterprise. Looks like the Enterprise E and the D. We have the Romulan Warbird down here. We have a Klingon battlecruiser, a couple of different Klingon battlecruisers. The Defiant, kind of hard to see some of these, but very, very cool. And just by if you're new to this hobby, just by sitting back and doing a little bit of homework and watching some YouTube videos and doing some of your own experimentation, you can master doing this type of lighting yourself and build the model of your dreams. Have to refresh the page here, looks like. Okay, let's go on down. As you can see, like I mentioned at the top of the show, this is a very active group of modelers. We've always got some really cool stuff going on here. Here's a nice Gundam build. Star Wars speeder bike by Derek Sabera. A Into Darkness Enterprise. Let's have a look at this one. You can see all the Aztec paneling again on that surface of the saucer. Looking really nice. Beautiful job on the deflector dish there. John Hunt did a nice classic Romulan Bird of Prey, one of my favorite ships. Here we have a really nice nice little design here. This is the USS Bozeman, as was seen, I believe, in, I could get this wrong, but it was either Next Generation or Deep Space Nine. Kind of a variation of the Miranda class, which was the original Reliant that we saw in Star Trek II. You can see the roll bar is gone. There's been some more weapons detail. These are some kind of super cannon phaser things, it looks like. Very neat looking design. Extended shuttle bay landing area there. Very nice. Very nice. Looks to be about 1/1000th scale or so. Lots of detail there. Beautiful work. And let's see what else we have here. A lot of Star Trek stuff so far, but this community that we have here is all about building all kinds of different models. People are into just about everything. You can see here, here's Bob Busking's original. This is a Repop classic kit that was done back in the 70s. It's maybe even the 60s it was brought back, and kind of a animated or kind of cartoon version of Fokker triplane, similar to the Red Baron, its original aircraft, which is pretty cool. Kind of made into a kind of a hot rod looking thing. Here we have Aussie Trekkie building a Kenworth T909, doing the showing you how to do the pinstriping work on this. Aussie Trekkie posts quite a bit over here, but he's also got his YouTube channel where he shows you live, or well, actually videos of doing some of these techniques. So if you want to learn how to do some pinstriping, you can hop over there and check out his channel. He's got many interesting subjects going on over there. He's currently building some World War II ships right now, battleships. Here's John Hunt with a collection of some of the various Klingon ships he's built. And people are always passing along good information to us here. We can see a post by Gadgetron 3000 where he mentions that over at Hobby Lobby they're having a clearance sale on a lot of these Star Trek kits, and you can see they've really slashed the prices here down to $12 on this kit here. This is one of the pre-painted 1/1000 scale Enterprise kits, pre-painted Klingon D7. I'm not sure if they're discounting all their Star Trek kits, but might want to head over there and see if you can find yourself a good deal if you're in the mood for building a Star Trek model. Here we have some more information from Gadgetron, where Bondi has announced they're coming out with the perfect grade 172 scale Millennium Falcon. I actually watched a couple of videos on YouTube about this. It's going to be a fantastic model. There's this model was actually rendered from the model as it appeared in the first film, A New Hope, which diehard Star Wars Millennium Falcon fans know that the ship appears a little bit differently than it does as seen later on in the second and third films. For example, the original filming miniature only had 3 landing gear, where they increased that later on. The thickness of the hull is a little bit different. Some of these little detail items on here are a little bit different, but this has been done as an exact recreation of the original first Millennium Falcon that we saw in the first film. And even if you already have a 172, for example, like a Fine Molds or Revell, you might want to pick this kit up because they're going to be different. You can say you have both versions of the Millennium Falcon, and the detailing and everything about it is just exquisite. When I saw the videos, it's just absolutely fantastic. They've even got the some of the battle damage already cast into the hull plating and things like that. I guess we could take a better look at this. Where the holes were punched in the hull from laser hits and things like that, it's already been done for you. You still have to paint it, but it has a fully detailed cockpit. Comes with its own display stand, which is really nice because that way you can either display the model landed on its landing gear or in flight like this. It's going to come with a lighting kit included already, so you don't have to try to figure that out. And I'm sure there'll be people that'll modify that and take it beyond with what comes in the kit, which is usually typical. Not sure if it has any photo etch parts or not. It may or may not, but if it doesn't, I'm sure some aftermarket parts will be available for that a little bit further down the road. But you can see it's just a beautiful model. Fully detailed cockpit, complete without the glass in the cockpit, just as the original shooting model was. Even the full-size model that they shot on stage with the cockpit, they didn't have any glass in there, so that's actually accurate. Wouldn't work too good in space, but it's okay for a scale model. You can see some beautiful work that they've done on this with their weathering details. Wow, look at that cockpit. That is great. Really nice. Typical Bondi quality. I think they're highlighting here some of the details that are a little bit different on the first filming miniature versus the second one. Areas like this. Here's your blast holes. Very nice. Got to get one of those myself. I've got the Fine Molds kit, but definitely want to get that one too. Supposed to be a little bit released a little bit later this year. Let's see. Let's go down here quite a ways and see if we can get into some new territory. Got a nice. I think this is a Raptor. Yeah, it's a Raptor that Dennis Statler's doing. Here we have a nice Lost in Space Jupiter 2 from the 1998 film, where they changed the design on that quite a bit. Some nice lighting there. We've even got people working on die-cast models. This is a 67 Pontiac Firebird that they decided to take it apart and repaint it. We can have a look at that here for some of you car guys out there. Real nice paint job on that. I believe I read about this. They wanted to change the look of it to mimic a car that somebody actually owned in real life, so that's pretty cool. And you can see they added some lighting. They've got the headlights lit up, and pretty neat. Taillights too. Dome light on the interior. Very neat. Nice job. Okay. Lots of Star Trek stuff. Always have a lot of Star Trek modelers here. It's also one of my favorite subjects. We have some information posted about the upcoming Star Trek Discovery television show. You can see here they've released a new updated image of what the ship's going to look like. I think that one's going to have to take a little while to grow on me. I don't know about you guys, but it's radically different, I'll give it that. We'll see, have to see, though. I'm willing to give it a chance. Here's a really nice Rio Grande runabout from DS9 that was done up with full interior and all the lighting and everything. Looks like James Kirk is starting on an Academy A-10 airplane. Classic Galileo shuttlecraft. Here's a this is actually a 1/537 scale Enterprise refit. Bondi TIE Fighter and Y-Wing. John Smith working on a Enterprise NX-01, laying down all the Aztecs. You can see how complex that is, but it's absolutely gorgeous when it's finished. It just adds so much detail to that model. And I'm a big fan of this design. I always like the NX-01. Lee Chambers with his, I believe this is a video link, but we might have some pictures a little bit farther down the line. I think this is an ME-110, World War II German aircraft. And Lee did some really interesting work on this. He's got one, this is a twin engine aircraft, and he's got one side here kind of open for display, like it's been, they're doing some service work on it. On the other side, he's got it all closed up, but he actually put a miniature motor in that to get the propeller to spin, which is a neat idea. It's all kinds of cool things you can do with modeling these days that you couldn't do 20 years ago. Bob Busking's beautiful Speed Racer Mach 5. I think we showed that on the last episode. Here's some pictures of Lee's, I think this is an ME-110. Let's see. As you can see, he did a little diorama scene here. Got the crew working on it. Very nicely done. Love the weathering and everything on the props and the engine bay. Now this engine over here that he's got closed up actually spins, and he's got an electric motor in there. He's got all his wiring hidden and everything, so just worked it out, and it looks great. And there you can see the propeller spinning. That is really slick. Look how realistic that looks. I think he's got it setting outside with some real trees in the background. That's a really cool shot right there. Takes you right back in time. Getting ready for a dawn takeoff. Very nicely done, Lee. They always take some interesting photographs of his models. Okay. Look at a few more here and we'll call this a wrap, guys. There's our Rio Grande again. Here's somebody put up a reference to the classic vintage model kit of the Rancor from the last Return of the Jedi. Actually, I'm confusing that with the title for the new movie, Return of the Jedi, which Luke had his famous battle down in the underground cage underneath of Jabba the Hutt's at Jabba the Hutt's headquarters there, and that was a pretty cool kit. I'm not sure what size it is or even what it's made out of. I've never actually seen the kit in person, but at 1/15 scale, so it's going to be pretty large. Pretty cool. Probably could still find that kit out there, but might be a little expensive. Rick Berger got a Father's Day gift of this 1/500 scale spaceship Yamato from Star Blazers. That's a nice gift. Good on you, Rick. Can't wait to see you build that one up. Nice X-Wing. Here was Omar had started the work on his Phase 2 Enterprise, and he's showing the work he's doing on the Aztec paneling. Some work on the 1/350 scale Battleship Bismarck from Aussie Trekkie, showing you some photo etch. Here's another example. We'll have a look at this. It's another example of the fine detail you can add to your model with photo etch, which you can see these ladders, these railings. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of extra time, but the results, as you can see here, are worth it in the end. It's just adds such a nice level of detail onto your model, because you just can't get those details that fine with molded styrene plastic. But it's coming out really nice. And Scott's working on this and also a 1/200 scale version of the Bismarck, which is huge. It's like the hull looks like a kayak that you could get in yourself and row down the river in it. They're just giant models. I'm hoping that they'll produce a 1/200 scale RMS Titanic. That would be fantastic. Here we have one of my favorites here. This is the original television show, The Invaders. We have the classic flying saucer from that television show. And Jeff Black did a beautiful build-up on this, did all the lighting. Now, you can use sometimes, in some cases, some ordinary household items to achieve the results. Now, he's got some window screen here for the mesh, and he's got milk jug plastic, which is exactly what I used when I built mine to do the light diffusion here on the bottom, so you can get your lights to come out of here but without really seeing everything that's in there. And of course these parts come with the kit, but you can see this is just a really cool little ship, and you've got the pulsing lights and the light here at the bottom and everything, and around the edge at the top. These lights actually spin. There's a little control board available from our good friend Ralph at Tenna Controls, which allows you to install a few LEDs in here and get this rotating effect, just as it did on the television show. That's what's so cool about the technology we have today, that we can achieve a lot of these special effects that were created for some of these classic television shows and filming miniatures and things like that, and it's become so much more affordable and easy to do with solid state technology instead of the old tubes and giant capacitors and things from the 70s and the 80s. And these little control boards now are becoming so small. And like I said, if you're new to this and you're thinking about getting into some of this stuff, I highly encourage you to check it out. It's not as difficult as it may seem at first. You just put in some time and practice here and there, and pretty soon you'll be designing your own circuits and building your own lighting systems for your models, and you'll be really happy with with what you can do. Well, I think we're going to call it a wrap here, guys, on the community. We'll take another quick break here. Appreciate you guys and all the work you do, and keep on posting out there, everybody. We really appreciate that, sharing your work. But we'll take a break really quick, and we'll come back, and we'll be set up on the bench here. It's going to be a little bit of a run on this. It's probably going to last a good half hour or 45 minutes or a little longer, because I'm going to take you through a few things I'm doing on the bench here with this lighting that we talked about at the top of the show. And maybe it'll give you a few ideas with what you'd like to do with some of your own lighting that you're working on. So we'll take a quick break, like I said, and we'll be right back, everybody. Stay tuned. Okay, everybody, well, we're back with you once more, and we're going to get into some actual work on the bench tonight, which is always a lot of fun. I got quite a bit of stuff laid out here for you guys. As you can see, as I mentioned, I'm working on a for one of my customers. I'm building this 1/350 scale Enterprise, and this particular client had some special requests as far as the lighting is going to be going on this, and he wanted to have some switching capability so that we could turn off certain things and turn certain things on, all controlled from the display base that the bottle is going to be mounted on. And so whenever we're going to talk about doing something like that, we have to sit and figure out how we're going to achieve that. We have to create some circuits so that we have everything separated, that we can isolate on different switches, and we've got to get power to everything, and we've got to of course install the lighting itself. Now on this particular item right here, I'm going to show you, this is the one of the warp engine nacelles, and we've got these inner grills here that everyone knows on the original series that these were just kind of done in a silver metallic finish, but a lot of modelers out there these days are choosing to light these. Now there's some information that's been going around the last few years that Gene Roddenberry, when he created the original television series, and we was talking about the Enterprise itself, he had actually had an idea of wanting to do some lighting in here and do it in blue. And at that time, unfortunately, the main part of the filming miniature, which is the 11-foot ship that we see in the Smithsonian now, the work on the nacelles was already completed, and they're kind of he was told that it would be really difficult to get in there and go back and do that. So they, with it, they were kind of working on it with a budget, so it was never done. But anyway, So a lot of people these days want these chiller grills, as they're called, lit up. And so as you can see, what we've got here is inside, if I tilt this just right, you can see that I've laid down a strip of this LED tape, which you guys have seen me use quite often. Those of you out there who have been working with lighting are very familiar with this stuff. Now, some of you new to the hobby may not have seen it before. You can basically buy these strips of LED lights. These are all a bunch of individual LEDs mounted on some adhesive tape, which you can stick down on the surface. You have to do a little bit of work to prepare these. You've got to solder some wires onto these. You can see, if I can get it up closer, you can see it has some miniature copper terminals on there. And these are designed with their own resistors already built in, so you don't need to solder on any additional resistors. Although in some cases you might want to do that, depending on if you're doing some custom lighting. For example, let's say that you're running the model at 9 volts DC, and all your other lighting is operating at 9 volts, and you've got this LED strip hooked up and running at 9 volts, but maybe it's a little bit too bright for what you want it to do. So in that case, where you're bringing in your power, your two power wires, your plus and your minus here, you can connect a resistor. Depending on what value it might be, you'll have to work that out. But you can try these, various resistors, and that will actually dim this down a little bit. Now, this particular product is available in several forms. It's this stuff right here is called double density, and what they mean by that is it's got so many LEDs per inch, and I believe it's 3 per inch, where the single density is half of that. So depending on if you're going to light, what you're trying to light, if you're just trying to light general interior areas and things like that, the single density stuff is fine. But if you're trying to do lighting where we're going to have exposed, surface lighting, then the double density is a little bit better, because it helps you to get more even lighting, so that you don't see like individual hot spots, where you see individual bright points of light that you don't want to see. You want it to look all uniform. So, but there's a lot of different forms of this available, and there's different ways you can use it. But most of the time, you're going to wind up using it right out of the box, so to speak, where you just solder a couple wires onto it, hook it up to power, and it's ready to go. And that's basically what I'm doing in this case here. I've got some double density blue LED tape mounted down in there, which is going to shine directly up this way, and we're going to have these grills that go in here. There's an inlay piece that goes on the model, sort of like so, and these little grills, which fit in these panels here, will actually light up in blue. So this is going to be pretty cool. Now, something I want to talk about too is that sometimes you have to modify things, the parts themselves, to be suitable for lighting. Now, Polar Lights Round 2 Models offers an aftermarket what they call a lighting kit for this model, which comes with a lot of clear parts, which are more easily worked with when you're trying to do lighting. But the kit's kind of expensive, and I wasn't going to be using the actual lighting components for the kit, which comes with all the control boards and the LED strip tape and all that. And you can't buy them separately, so in some cases, you have to kind of work out your own way of doing things. So what I've done here is I've got these regular styrene plastic parts that came with this kit, which it's not going to show up very well in this low resolution camera, but they actually have some texturing on them here that gives this sort of grill work look. And normally on the back side here, they would have these sort of ledges that were on here, so they kind of sit in these little things. But they were pretty thick, and when I was doing my experimenting here, and I did a couple of these, I've done a couple of these already, so I've learned about how to do this. But so what I thought was, okay, if this was a little bit thinner, the light would come through it a little bit better. So I just basically took my Dremel tool and I removed that ledge that's been molded onto this part all the way around. I did that on all 4 of these pieces. There's 2 of them that go on each side. And then I just took some regular 180 grit sandpaper that you see here, and I laid it down on a flat surface, and I just kept sanding on it, like, with a block sander and just sanded it and sanded it and sanded it until I got it probably about half the amount of thickness that it normally is, where, you know, it's still plenty strong and everything. This doesn't carry any load of weight or anything on it. They're just little display grills that go on there, so we have to worry about that. And sure enough, I got it down thin enough now where the light actually comes through that really nicely. And it's great because being regular styrene like this, it diffuses the light really nice to it. You know, it makes it kind of opaque so that we don't see there, you know, hot spots in there or anything. It just gives a nice even blue lighting look. And I'm going to show you how that looks here in just a little while. We'll turn this thing on and I'll show you what that looks like. But these have got to be painted silver, so all we'll have to do is take our airbrush, or if you don't have an airbrush, just a regular can of spray paint in the silver, and just then very lightly dust a coat of paint on this, just enough to where it turns, you know, the silver color, but don't saturate it on there. Not to worry, you know, if you put too much, you can always, you know, get it back off of there and do it again. But it works really great with an airbrush because you can really control, you know, you can just put a really fine mist of paint on there. So you'll get it to look silver. So when the lights are not on, it looks normal. It looks like it should. It's just a regular, you know, silver look like it should be. But then when you turn the lights on, it goes right through the silver and suddenly they turn blue. And it looks really cool. Now, the customer wanted to have this ability, which I think is nice because you could either have it look like it did on the original show, or you can push a button now and these will light up, you know, separately. So he can display it either way. So what I've done here is I put an extra set of wires in that are going to run from our LED strip tape that we've got mounted down in there. And then we've also got the forward part up here, which is going to have the electronic spinning Bassard effect, which will have its own separate set of power wires that basically those will come on every time we power the model up, so they can be connected to the main power. So when I attach these onto the pylons that are coming off of the hull, we'll have two sets of wires coming up in there. So, you know, you've got to kind of plan. This is what I was talking about on the planning. You're going to have two sets of wires coming up in there. That one wire goes to our main power, which we know every time we turn on the power switch, everything that we want to come on automatically, that's what we're going to connect on that circuit. Now, a separate set of power wires will be run up through there that connect to this wire, which will turn on our LED lights. Now, what he also wanted to do was here in the back, we have these kind of thruster ports on the back of the nacelles here, and we've got this little detail right here. I'll just kind of stick this on here really quick and show you. Get it past my wires here. We've got this little detail, these little end caps that go on our nacelles here, and we've got these little detail globes that go on there, and he wants to have this globe actually emitting a little bit of light too, you know, not super bright, just a kind of a subtle little glow coming out of there. So, and he wants that to come on this at the same time that this lighting does. So what I've done here is I've extended my wires that are the same as these right here, and I've got them out the back so that we can now connect an LED onto that and get that to work, so it'll all be on the same circuit. So what I wanted to show you right now is how I started thinking about how I'm going to do this. Now, I've done this blue lighting up here several times, but I had never done this lighting here at the back. And as I mentioned, we have solid plastic parts here. These are not molded in clear, so we're going to have to we know that some light will come through them, but we're going to have to get our lighting in there pretty close, and it's going to have to be pretty bright lighting in order to get through that and give a little bit of illumination. But hopefully, if my idea works here, it should come out just about right. These are actually molded in the correct color that they should be. They should be this little bit different color than the rest of the hull. So we're not going to paint these. We'll just leave these completely the way they are, and we'll just put a little bit of, you know, sealer on when we're painting the model and everything, some clear sealer. But I'm thinking that I can put a 5mm white LED right in the very center of this, and get it mounted in there pretty close, and it should illuminate that whole thing really nice. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little mounting bracket for that, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that here. And this is the things that you work out when you're doing lighting. I've got some regular sheet styrene here that you can buy at your local hobby store. They have it in all different thicknesses. This comes in, different size sheets. I buy these fairly large sheets because I use this stuff all the time. I do scratch building with this stuff. I make little brackets for mounting things, or it has all kinds of uses. So I'm going to take this cap itself and use this as a template. I'm going to lay it down like this, and I'm just going to trace around it with a marker here, if I can keep it steady. Doesn't have to be perfect, just give me an idea of the shape and the size that I'm going to need. And we don't need to worry about it being real pretty right now as far as my line. So I've just created this kind of circle here, and what the idea is that I think what I'm going to be able to do here is I'm going to be able to take and drill a hole in the center of this, and that'll be where I can sort of flush mount this this LED. As you can see, these LEDs have a little shoulder on them at the base, which allows you to kind of slide it into a hole, and it won't pass all the way through. It'll sit there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this in the very center. Let's go ahead and cut this out first of all and see if the shape or the size of it's going to be correct. Because now what I'm hoping is that I can lay this little bracket, this little plate, if you want to call it that, inside here with our LED mounted in that, and that the LED will sit in here and poke out just enough where it's going to fit inside this little globe right here, and presto, we'll have our lighting effect figured out here for the back of the nacelle. So let me go ahead and cut this out first. We may have to make it a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, but we'll see. I just wanted to use that. I knew that size of that globe was going to be get us in the ballpark where we need to be. Now, I need to make 2 of these because we're going to do both sides. But let's just, you can see we've got a little circle cut out. You can see how easy it is to cut out that plastic. Let's just lay this in here and see. And it fits perfect. If I can hold this up for you. It fits perfect. So what we'll do is we'll glue that down in there. We're going to go ahead and mount our LED first. I've got my little Dremel tool here. Let's see, I need to get the right tip. I have a tip here for this. Here we go. And I'll just make a little hole in the center of it as best I can. And grab my safety glasses here in case anything comes flying off. So here we go. We're just going to punch a little hole in the center of this. Doesn't have to be perfect, just kind of close. I'm just making it a little bit bigger. I'm guesstimating here on how big it needs to be for our LED to slip into that. It needs to be just a little bit bigger. I'd have to do this once or twice here. Okay, it fits in there perfect. So we've got our little bracket. Now let's just kind of let's test this and see how it's going to fit in there with the LED. Now I can bend these. For those of you guys that are new to this, you've got your LED, which it has these 2 terminals on it. You have these 2 little wires here. One's longer than the other. The longer one's usually always the positive side for connecting your wires. And you've also got to usually run a resistor. That's different than the LED tape that we showed you. These individual LEDs usually have to have a resistor. So I've got my basic. I'll be running this circuit at 9 volts DC. So this is a 1/4 watt, 470 ohm resistor, which will put this LED like right in the middle of its nominal operating range, which will give it a nice bright light, but it'll also give it a nice long lifespan. You don't want to under resistor your LEDs, because if you do, they'll work for a while, but they'll burn out sooner than normal too. So that's something you always want to pay attention to. Now this 1/4 watt 470 ohm is good for just about 99% of all your LEDs if you're going to run them anywhere between 9 to 12 volts. Just kind of keep that in mind. We'll maybe do another episode later on where we talk a little bit more about that. But here you can see we've got this. Now I'll wind up super gluing this down onto here, but I just want to kind of lay it in here and see how my idea's taking shape here. Um, Looks like it's going to fit in there just fine, and we'll give you a side profile here to show you how far you can see it sticking up. I'm going to have to bend these tabs a little bit on the wires, but there you can see the side profile as far as how far it's going to stick up. So that's going to fit in that globe really nice. I don't think it's going to quite touch it, which we don't want it to do, but it should work pretty good. Now, one more thing on these LEDs. Most people may or may not be aware of this. This has a this is not the same as a regular incandescent light bulb. In other words, there's no inert gas that's trapped inside of this little bulb here. So if you were actually to crack it or something, you know, it will no longer function where you, like your normal old-fashioned light bulbs that you had in your house. There's simply a little filament down here in the bottom, basically a cathode, and it's a light emitting diode, and it just works on its own. This plastic part is actually the what they call the lens for the LED. So they subtly shape these certain ways to get certain effects, so that the light tends to be sort of focused. And if you get down into the nitty gritty and look at the specs on a lot of these LEDs, they'll tell you things like how many millicandles it is. That's how bright it is, and the viewing angle. In other words, the viewing angle is off to the side and things like that. How much can you see it and all that. So, but when you're using these LEDs for doing this type of lighting, where it's not on the surface, like where it's a blinking navigation light or something like that, I found a nifty little trick that makes your LEDs look a little bit more, give you more uniform lighting. In other words, emit more of an even glow all the way around it, instead of being, in this particular case, if I didn't do anything with it, the light's going to be focused and be really bright at the tip, but be kind of not as bright around the edges. So what I do is I just take my good old 180 grit sandpaper again, and I just scuff these up. I just remove the the fine polished surface detail that's on these LEDs, and I just sort of, without removing a lot of material, I just sort of flatten out the nose of it, or the very tip of it, if you want to call it that. And that gets rid of the the focused light, where it's focusing on a really small little pinpoint of light, and it makes you get more of a nice little halo of light, and makes it look more even. And so it works great for doing things like this. One of the things that I do on these, especially these Star Trek models, is like say on your Enterprise refit, or your Excelsior, the Excelsior that I built a while ago, the deflector dish. That's one of the secrets that or one of the tips that I use that makes that deflector dish give that nice dull kind of halo effect in there, where you can see the where it's bright in the center and it kind of trails off, instead of just being one really super bright light in the center and the rest of it's all completely washed out, and when you look at it you can hardly stand to look at it because it's way too bright. This is one of the tips or one of the tricks that I use to make it look like that, because it breaks up that bright pinpoint of light. Let me go ahead and turn my solder on and warm that up while we're waiting here. We're going to actually wire this up and see how it looks here in just a second. So, like I said, it might be old hat to some of you guys out there, but some of you new people that have just started to work with this, that's a nice little tip for you right there. I can't remember if I saw it on YouTube or something like that, or I was just playing around one night and just kind of figured it out myself, but it works really, really well, and it's that quick. I mean, it only takes a couple of seconds. You don't need to, physically remove a lot of material off of this. This is just plastic. You don't need to sand it down a lot. All you're doing is basically scuffing it up to where the entire thing looks sort of frosted, if you want to use that term. That's all it takes, and it makes a big, big difference. Okay, so we've got that one done. Let's go ahead and we know this is going to fit and everything, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and glue this in. I'm going to use a little bit of, just a couple drops of CA glue. Make sure I got it in there kind of straight. Just glue it around the base. Oh, looks like my CA bottle is plugged up here. That's kind of normal. Let's see if we can clear this out really quick. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So we'll glue this in place. Doesn't take a whole lot, just a couple of drops. And I've got my accelerator here, and we're going to hit it really quick. Alrighty. So we have this mounted in here. We're making pretty good progress. Now, what I'll do is once I have this installed inside here, and everything's to my liking, and I've got it all wired up and everything's ready to go and it's tested and it's working, I will take some black spray paint in my airbrush, put it just regular black, and put it in my airbrush, and I'll basically paint the entire inside of this and do what we call light blocking. And I'll actually just paint right over the back side of that LED so that we don't have any light leaking out of that and getting into our area here at the rear where it might wash out a little bit of our blue color. So that's something you want to think about too if you're going to be having adjacent lighting areas that are going to be different colors and things like that. You've got to either build some kind of separation panel in there, or you've got to block out the light from behind. If it's coming out on the surface, it's not a problem because you can just go on the inside and just put a little bit of black paint on the back side of that LED, and it won't put any light on the inside of the model at all. Like, for example, I do that on the top of the saucer where we've got the blinking LEDs for the navigation lights in red and green, but we might, on the inside of the model, we might have a set of windows or something right next to it that's supposed to be lit in white. Well, you don't want to look in those windows and see flashing red leaking in there, or flashing green, or whatever the case may be. So you want to light block those from behind and not have that happen. So just kind of a simple little thing, but something to keep in mind. Okay, so we've got this sitting in here now, and I'm going to go ahead and bend these terminals just a little bit so we can fit it in there just a little bit easier. And check it again. Yeah, it's going to work out great. Really perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to solder on my resistor. As I said, I know that the longer terminal here is the positive side. So I'm just going to wrap my little wire around that. Cut off the excess. And we'll go ahead and solder that really quick. I'm using regular 6040 rosin core solder, which means it has like a built-in adhesion promoter, if you want to think of it like that, that helps the solder stick to the wire a little bit better. So I'm soldering at about 750 degrees. I'm just going to put a little bit on here. You don't need a lot of solder on your wires, guys, just enough to make sure they're coated. You don't want to have big globs of solder on your wiring. I put a little bit on there and just let the heat soak into it and let it spread by itself, and that usually does the trick. So there you go. We've got our resistor on there now. It's starting to look like something here. So let's get our nacelle now, and we're going to go ahead and solder this onto our wires. We've got our plus and our minus here, so I'm going to solder on the plus side first. Actually, let me get a little piece of, I might have to go to the other table. There we go. We have a piece right here. We have some heat shrink tubing that we can put on here to insulate this. Might as well do that. slide that over your wire before you connect it together. Alright, so let's wrap this one around here. Get our positive side soldered up first. Whoops. Okay, and we'll do the negative side next. That's going to be a little bit shorter, but we'll make it work. There we go. We've got that connected. So before I go any further, the first thing I want to do is I want to test this. I've got my wires bared up here at the front, and since this is all on the same circuit, when I connect this to my power supply, this should light the blue LED tape, and I'll also light that LED there we've got installed at the rear. Pretty simple. I've been thinking about this for a few days, so I'm curious as to how this is going to look. And there you have it. We have our really nice bright white LED there, and it won't show on the camera, guys, but you can just see in person now by looking at this LED that that little bit of sanding that we did on that, it's given a completely different effect of the lighting, where normally it would be just kind of focusing this little beam, you know. Now it's more kind of emitting a kind of a little halo of light around that, and that's exactly what I was hoping for. Let's see. Yeah, that's gonna light that up really nice. Okay, so let's put our cap on here. Now I'll be, you know, light blocking this and gluing it all together and everything. We're just doing this for demonstration purposes right now. But let's push our wires in and see how. Whoop, let's you know what, I'm going to heat shrink these first before we go any further. We don't want any shorts. Get carried away. So we get our, we don't have anything touch each other in there and have a problem. So let's get this other one put right up against that. Okay, so that's taken care of. Now we can push this in here, and let's lay our little piece on there. Just hold it up for you. Alright, we can see we have our blue lighting on there, and we have, let's turn this light down here. Maybe you can see this. We've got a great little glow coming off of that. Let me jump up really quick and turn off the overhead lighting in the shop and show you the look of that. There. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. Let's turn the one more set of lights down here if I can reach it and show it to you in the dark. And there you go. Isn't that amazing? I mean, we're lighting up right through the plastic, and that's not a clear part, and that looks really, really good. Now, let me go back over here and turn the lights on. So it's actually almost a little bit too bright. But that's fine. I can go ahead and and do the same thing that we talked about here. I can dust a little bit of paint on this and just keep adding my, adding it a little bit more and more and more until I get it dimmed down to where I like it. And we'll just get that nice little subtle glow. Now it's perfect in regular room lighting, and maybe I'll show a couple of pictures of this to my client and see how bright he wants this to look. But in room lighting, you can just, you can see that it's got a glow to it, but it's not glaringly bright. So maybe it's just about right the way it is. But anyway, you can see how well that works. Let's show you now what we were talking about here on the grills. Let me grab my little insert piece here. Let's just do this. We'll unhook these wires really quick, and we'll run the wires. So now these wires are going to be tucked inside everywhere. We're going to run our wires up through the pylon, as I said, on 2 separate circuits. So we've got one that's going to light this, our chiller grill, and our little tail light here, and then we're going to run a separate set of power wires up here for the I'll be using these little electronic control boards from Tenna Controls to make my spinning engine effects, and they just require their own power. So those will come on all the time whenever we turn the power on the model. But these we wanted to control separately. So let's pull these wires through, and that way we can get our little panel mounted flush here. Get that down in there, and all I'm going to do is well, these will all get glued in place. You may see a couple of light leaks right now, but that'll all get straightened out. But what we're going to do is we're going to lay this panel on here. Get that down in there. Let's go ahead and power this back up. Try to put my hand over this other one so it's not blinding you, but you can see now it looks a little bit washed out in the on this low-grade camera here, but it's giving me a beautiful blue, neon blue, beautiful look, and it shows up really nice in regular room lighting. It'll look a little bit brighter in the dark, but the chiller grills on the refit are very pronounced, and they're definitely there. This, you want it to be kind of a little, to me it should be a little bit more subtle and not glaringly bright where it's lighting up the whole back part of the ship. Got a little loose connection here on my clip, but you can see just that little bit of work we did there, thinning these down a little bit more. And believe me, when I tried these at first, the way they were, you couldn't see any kind of light coming through them at all. They were just too thick. And we can kind of lay this other one over here a little bit, and you can see that too. It's going to look beautiful. So we've got that our little lighting situation figured out. I'll do, like I said, I'll be doing some fine tuning on it, getting this to look just the way it should. And we got to come back in here. We'll glue this piece in here, and then I'll go in there and light block all that on the inside and all that, so we don't have any light leaking. And we may have to put a little bead of putty around the once it's mounted on there, so nothing's leaking out around here where these little pieces mount on the top or anything. Just little things like that you'll have to do, but it's working out great. So there you have it, guys. Some interesting little methods that, and you kind of just have to use your imagination a little bit sometimes when you're thinking about how you want to do some of this stuff, and just, kick it around in your head for a couple of days, write down some of your ideas. That's basically how I do it. And then work it out. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Don't get discouraged. If something doesn't work, go back to the drawing board and try it from another angle. There's lots of different ways. Now, somebody else out there could have maybe thought of an entirely different way to do this, and it works just the same. But as long as you're getting the results that you want, that's all that really matters. So I hope you enjoyed that. We're going to be doing this, repeating this process for the other one, and worked out really good. So on the next episode, I'm going to get into a little bit more lighting, because that's a question that I get a lot on emails and things like that from people that watch. And we're going to start working on our secondary hull here, and I'm going to show you how I I've often shown on how I just wire the basic, how to solder the wires onto the LED strip and all that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you how I install all these and how to make the certain type of circuit. I like to go with a what's called a parallel circuit, where everything is got its own power source. So if you ever have a failure, maybe if later on, hopefully it never happens. I mean, these LED strips should theoretically last, for years and years and years. But if one ever decides to burn out, it's not going to cut off the power to the rest of all the lighting. So maybe you'll, at worst case scenario, you'll lose a little lighting on one section of your windows or something like that, but the rest of the model will keep on working. Where if you wire it in series, where you can think of it like a chain, a link, with links together. If one of those links fails, everything beyond that point is not going to work anymore. So that's something I stay away from. I wire all my work with parallel circuits. It's more work because you've got to run extra wires and everything, but it's a lot more reliable and more efficient too. You get direct power to everything. So I'm going to take you next time and show you how I put all these parts in. Now that this is this one model, but that same technique works on basically any kind of model that you're trying to light. So I hope you'll come back and check that out. Okay, so that's a wrap for everything on our bench tonight. We're going to take one more quick break here and come back and hop over to our question and answer session and see what everybody's been talking about in the chat tonight. And if you're here in the live chat, make sure you sign in or type a comment in there, so I'll see your name and give you guys a nice shout out when we go down our guest list tonight. So we'll see you guys with that in just a couple seconds. Okay, everybody, back with you again. I hope you enjoyed our little on the bench segment tonight, and I wanted to mention that if anybody has any questions about anything that we showed on the bench tonight, feel free to ask. You just type it away in the chat section there, and hopefully I'll spot it and I'll answer the question, and if I can't, maybe somebody else here can. Let's head over there now and see who's all here tonight. That's the first thing we like to do. Make sure I mute my YouTube there. Okay, let's see. We have John Petrie's with us tonight, all the way from the UK. Nice to see you, John. Minicraft Trekkie. Right off the bat, he's asking a question: did the globes on the back of the engines glow during the show? I don't believe they did, but it's something that my client requested, and I've seen a few other builds out there where they've done the same thing, so we're going to make that happen for them. But it's always fun to take, depending on whether you're trying to, do something, an exact recreation, or if you want to add your own little kind of touches to certain things. We have a Smooth's Workshop, Outsider 238, Phil Sprueworks PJC 2.0, NASCAR and Broncos fans, Jason Matthews, Todd Davies, Heath's Model Builds. I think that's Heath Tompkins. Heath is coming to us all the way from the land down under, mate. The good country of Australia. Omar is with us tonight. Mike Kovac. Let's see. Fubar Model Yard. Jim Clark. Dana Church. Alpha Trion 92. Leona Timber Company. Dennis with Federation Shipyards with us tonight. Brian Knowles. Jim Schulenberg. Star Siege Player. George Volkowski. Ralph with Tenant Controls is here with us tonight. I like to use Ralph's, he's a sponsor of our show, and as you guys know, I'm pretty much exclusively using Ralph's electronics. I've had great success and just rock solid product ever since I've been using it for the last 6 years. Oh, we have Gil with Red Dragon Model Works. Very nice to see you, Gil. Haven't seen you in a while. I've been meaning to stop by one of your. I watch your hangouts all the time that you're doing. Gil has a group of people on his hangouts. I think they're on Friday and Saturday nights, maybe sometimes Sunday nights too. And Gil is a really nice guy, and he loves to teach people out there about. He's an excellent painter. He does a lot of airbrushing and hand painting on figures and things like that, and he does fantastic work, and he's really nice about sharing his knowledge. So hop by over at Red Dragon Model Works and the Styrene Syndicate and check out what they're doing over there. We've got Gearhead Workshop. That's Chuck Brooks. Nice to see you on with us, Chuck. I've been missing talking to you guys. I knew I'll be catching up with you guys Monday night. We've got Constellation Pegasus. I think he might be new. Welcome. We have Paul DiTomaso. Dadnator 24. Nice to see you tonight, Rick. We showed your nice little space battleship Yamato Father's Day gift. Can't beat that for Father's Day. Clint Llewellyn. Gadgetron 3000, who's our resident roving. I call him our resident roving reporter. He's always the man on the scene with all the newest modeling news about new kits and things like that are going on. Appreciate him keeping us up to date on that. Got Bill Kittleman. I think Bill might be new with us. I don't recognize the name from before, so if you're new, welcome, Bill. Gerald Jameson. Just getting caught up here. We've got Bill Tilley, Sal C. Jabberwocky. Love the name, buddy. Nice to have you on with us tonight. George Bramble. Yeah, I haven't talked to you in a little while there, Ralph. I'll have to give you a call on the phone this week and see what's shaking out there in electronic land. I'm sure you've got some kind of interesting project going on. Got Todd Davies, who says he's from over the pond, so I guess he's somewhere over in Europe. Nice to have you on with us, Todd. Appreciate you staying up late with us. Rocket Boy 1969. Got James Frost, the paper model extraordinaire. Nice to have you on with us, James. Mike Pack. Big Stats, Sci-Fi Fantasy. Kenny from over at Sci-Fi Fantasy. Kenny's another guy. Kenny's got, we mention Kenny quite often. He's got his website, Sci-Fi Fantasy, and his YouTube channel of the same name. You can go over there and check out what's going on. They mainly focus on sci-fi subjects, but there's some fantastic work going on over there. People sharing their builds and their building tips and things like that. And Kenny builds models himself and posts all of his work on his YouTube channel. I see here where Ralph out there has helped somebody, a fellow modeler, NASCAR and Broncos fan, says thanks to Ralph for making his dream come true of he modified a board for his impulse engines and came up with a stereo sound system for his model. So great, good on you, Ralph. Ralph is the man when it comes to that stuff. He's always willing to go outside of the box and help people that have their ideas, for what they want to do that might be, something that doesn't exist. And that's why I think Ralph is one of the best. He's willing to take on those kind of things along with all the other great stuff that he offers already. So I really appreciate that, Ralph. Always fun in the chat session. Leona Timber Company says we've been talking about how Omar is really a slee stack. Well, you have to be an old schooler to even know what a slee stack is. I'll just leave it at that. So yeah, guys, I wanted to discuss with you while we're here, while I let a few more names pop in. We want to do another 48-hour build, and I wanted to put it to you guys as far as some suggestions on what our subject might be. Now, we've covered our last one, our spring build. We did the anything from movies, sci-fi, or television, and that covered a lot of stuff. I mean, you could pretty much come up with almost anything. So I kind of wanted to narrow it down a little bit this time and maybe challenge people a little bit more. I'll just throw one out there. I was thinking anything from like a police subject. In other words, so, maybe a police motorcycle, a police airplane, a police helicopter, a police car, something like that. Now, it doesn't have to be modern either. It could be, really old police stuff. Like I said, I think an old police motorcycle, like the old Harleys that they used to have, or I've got a couple ideas of what I was thinking about I might try or something like that, just to kind of narrow it down a little bit. And I know Mike Kovac is probably on with us tonight, and he's probably like, oh man, because he's been working on a Atom 12. You guys remember the old Atom 12? I think he's getting pretty far along the line on that one, and he's probably thinking, well, I just did a police thing, but maybe you can do another one, Mike, if we pick that subject. But maybe something along those lines. That's just something I'm throwing out there. NASCAR and Bronco fans, you read my mind. That's the vehicle that I was thinking about building. I love that car. I saw that movie, and that's exactly what I was thinking about building. There is no exact model kit of that out there, but you could get the Plymouth Fury and paint it the blue and the white that it was, and put the little ram. He had the little ramming thing on the front of the bumper there, where he was knocking people off the road. He wasn't a nice cop. Yeah, and eventually then later on build the little 34 Ford Coupe to go with it, and that'd be a neat little display. I love that movie, The California Kid. Martin Sheen was probably only barely 20 years old when he made that movie. But anyway, so those are some suggestions, guys. So I'm going to post the details about that over on our page, and just see what everybody thinks. But I do want to narrow, whatever the subject is, I want to narrow it down to something more than just general, to maybe, give people a little bit more of a challenge this time than than just a wide variety of things. That way people maybe, it's always nice to challenge yourself a little bit and take on something that you haven't maybe, I haven't built any kind of police subject of any kind before, so I'd like to do something like that. So we'll just throw that out there, and I'm thinking maybe, give people plenty of time. I'm thinking, let's see, it's June. I'm thinking maybe August. We'll shoot for like maybe the middle of August, like the second week of August when we would start it. We would do it over a weekend like we did before. Um, start it off on a Friday night and end up Sunday night, so people, hopefully that don't have to work on the weekend have time to work on it. And again, these are always just for fun, guys. You don't have to kill yourself or get all stressed out about not making it on time. I actually was kind of bummed out this time. This little group build we did last time, this is the first one I didn't meet my deadline. I still haven't finished up my little Nelly. He's over there languishing on the shelf over there. I've just been so busy here in the shop. I just haven't had time to get to it, but I'll get him buttoned up and show you guys how it turned out. Yeah, there you go. There's one you could do, Clint, if we did a police subject. Roscoe's from the Dukes of Hazzard, his police car. That kit's out there. Like I said, there's a lot of cool police subjects, And Batman technically could maybe qualify as police, He's kind of worked with the police, so maybe some Batman subjects could fit in there. There's quite a few police things. Yeah, Jackie Gleason's car from Smoking the Bandit. There you go. I mean, people are already getting ideas. So, as I said, I'm just putting that one out there, guys. You could, somebody may come up with something entirely different. Maybe we do something from the U.S. Air Force, so it has to be a plane or some kind of Air Force vehicle, or maybe something from NASA. But we'll put it out there and maybe we'll put it to a vote or something like that and see what everybody thinks. Yeah, Blue Thunder would classify as a police subject. So you can see the, it's not going to restrict you too much. The Blues Brothers car, that'd be a great one to do. Mad Max, that was a police car, the Interceptor. T.J. Hooker, there you go, with Leonard Nimoy hanging onto the hood or something like that, toupee falling off and all. Sorry, Bill. Okay, guys, so there's that. Now, so yeah, if anybody has any questions about, wants to ask some modeling questions, either maybe I can help you here, or we've got Gil's on with us tonight. If you have a question about airbrushing, Gil's a master airbrush artist. He could maybe help you out. I think he's still here. I can't tell if he's still here or not, but he might be able to answer a question on that. Or if you have a question here about the lighting that we did tonight, or anything along the lines of lighting. As I said, yeah, I don't think I'd ever make it as a comedian, Omar, but I try. So yeah, if you have any questions about anything we did tonight, I'll be happy to answer that for you, or maybe something along those lines. And as I said, next week, on next episode, we're going to come back and get into a little bit more meat and potatoes on that. I mainly do it for people who are trying to learn. A lot of you guys that are on with us tonight are old hats at this. You've been doing it a long time, so it's nothing new to you. But there's a lot of people that are new to our group, and they keep joining, and they have questions about that, so we want to help them out. Good night, John. Yeah, it's late over there in the UK. It's 2 o'clock in the morning, almost 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, here's a airbrush question. What does it do if you move your needle set point back in a double action airbrush? I'm going to wait and see if Gilbert's still here. Maybe he can answer that one. I have a pretty good idea, but I'd give him a stab at it first. Let's see if he pops up here. Sunny Shade is asking, I was wondering what color blue LEDs you use, 325 NM, 450 NM. I'm not sure about that, Sunny. I don't really go by those numbers. I just, I've been using some standard blue, just regular blue LEDs, and then the LED tape, it pretty much only comes in one shade of blue as far as I know. So that's pretty much all I can tell you on that. I haven't gotten that far into it where I've ever worked with exactly what those numbers are. I'm assuming that that's the hue or the shade of blue that they are. Okay, Shrapnel 2389. I think he might be new. Welcome. His question is on the video I put out a couple days ago showing the 50th anniversary Starship Enterprise with the Tenant Controls Bassards. How did you get the brass? It's more of a copper look, but how did you get that look when they were off and then clearly show up when they were lit and turned on? Well, the same exact technique that I was just showing you a few minutes ago, Shrapnel. I just dusted a very light coat of the copper color over those domes. What I did first is I take those domes and I use double-aught, very fine steel wool, and I just scuff them all up, like going in a kind of a circular motion, both inside and out, to get that diffusion first, so they're not, you're not seeing directly into them and seeing all the guts of what's inside there. You don't want to see that. When it's done, you only want to be able to see the light and a hint of the spokes, coming through when they're spinning. So I scuffed it all up really good with some double-aught steel wool, and then I just took some copper paint, which I believe I used a water-based copper paint, just some of that folk art craft paint, diluted it a little bit and put it in my airbrush, and I just got back really far, about almost a foot or foot and a half, and I just lightly dusted it on there. And what I did is I just kept doing that until and I would hold it up to the light and look at it to make sure I wasn't getting it on there too thick, for I could still kind of see through it, but yet have a fairly uniform color, where I put just enough of it on there so it assumed the color, but didn't completely block the light. And the light coming out of those is really bright anyway, so I was able to put a pretty good coat of that on there and still have the light come through when they turned on, and I think it looks great. I mean, that's the first time I had done that, and I did that based off of the way that they've got the on the original model. They didn't look like that. They were kind of white when they were not turned on, but they've done that now on the restored model at the Smithsonian. If you look at the model when it's turned off now, those domes are sort of a copper color, and I really like the way it looks. So I've been incorporating that into these builds now, and I think it works really, really well. But that's how you do it. Just really lightly dust it on there. I'm not sure if that'll work too great with a spray can, because it'll probably pile it on. Spray cans tend to put out a lot of paint and really thick. I mean, and if you get back too far, it's probably going to splatter. Because a spray can doesn't atomize the paint nearly as fine as an airbrush will. And so if you get back too far trying to put it on light, because a lot of paint's coming out, you might wind up with a bunch of little speckles on there. So, whatever you do, experiment. Get something clear, just a piece of clear plastic or something, a scrap piece of plastic, and experiment with it. Spray a little paint on there and hold it up to the light and see what you think. If it looks really splattered, it's probably not going to work. Or if you get it on there too thick. But I used that same exact method a long time ago, a couple years ago, when I when I built the Enterprise D. The chiller grills on that, on the sides, are supposed to look copper when they're not on, and then blue when they come on. So I did the exact same thing on that, and it worked out really great. So I hope that helps you out. Just scroll through here really quick. I think Gil may have left. He may have gone off. He may be doing his own live hangout tonight over on his channel, so he may not be here anymore. So let me see. I'm going to go back to that question about the airbrush from Star Siege Player. Airbrush question: What does it do if you move the needle set point back in a double action airbrush? Well, basically, you don't really want to do that, Star Siege. If you want to adjust the now, you have an internal adjustment on an airbrush where you can basically control when your paint comes in. So in other words, the sensitivity of the trigger. So I tend to like to have mine set where the paint comes in fairly quick. So you push down, you get your air. when you start to pull the needle back, towards the back, the paint comes in fairly quick. Now, you can lessen that by changing the position of that by turning that adjusting knob on the inside of the airbrush. You move it further back, it'll take longer for the paint to come in to where it gets to full volume. So you can do kind of more subtle, and I do adjust it from time to time. When I'm doing something like I'm trying to do shading or lightly dusting something on, I'll pull it back a little bit so I have a little bit more, I can bring my paint in more gradual like that. If I'm just painting a general surface and I just need to move a lot of paint and just cover an area, then I have it running wide open, so it basically almost as soon as I pull the trigger it starts to spray paint. If you were to loosen the needle inside its holder in there and slide it back and tighten it down, what's going to happen is you're going to get a ton of paint splattering out of the tip because there's nothing to hold it back. It won't be going past the needle. It'll start actually pooling inside the head of the spray or the of the airbrush, and it'll be puddled up in there. And when the air first comes out of it, it's going to just splatter all the paint right out of it. And that's one way you can tell when you've got a little piece of debris or some dried chunk of paint or something stuck between the needle and the seat in your airbrush, is it'll start to splatter and you'll notice it'll splatter every time you first hit the trigger and start spraying, because the needle is not going back and fully seating inside the seat. It's not making a perfect seal. Something is preventing it from going back all the way, and so a little bit of paint leaks in there, and when you first hit that air, poof, you get this big splatter of paint, and you don't want that. So that's basically it on how that works on adjusting the airbrush. Clint Llewellyn is asking, what type of blue was used for Adam West's Batman costume? The blue I use looks like it's from the comics. I have not done that model yet, Clint. I don't know. I mean, as you know, I mix my own paints. So what I'll do is I'll look for a really good, clear picture of Adam West's costume, and look at it in hopefully like in a shot where he's standing outside in normal lighting, not in room lighting, because room lighting can really fool you. Where he's standing in like regular sunlight. Now, if I remember correctly, Adam West's costume is more of a gray. It's a gray with a little bit of, I want to say, purple kicked into it. That's my what catches my eye when I look at it. I mean, not super purple, but it's a little bit of gray with some purple in there. And his cape is a crimson, dark midnight blue with some purple highlights on it here and there on his cowl around the ears. You'll notice it's got like it's more dark blue or whatever towards like the front where his little eyebrows are, and then around the top, around the ears, there's definitely some like purple satin or something going on there, and same thing on his cape. But that's and so I'll mix my own colors, and I'll just sit here and mix. I'd start off with a gray and maybe start make some purple and start adding it in there until I get it to where I think it looks close. I don't know if I don't have the kit, but a lot of times there'll be in the instructions there'll be color call outs in there, and it'll tell you out of the box or off the shelf paints that'll be close to what color that should be. And I don't know if they have it in that particular set of instructions or not, but they often do. You might want to check that. Bill Kittleman's asking, is that the classic Star Trek Enterprise? Yes, it is, the one that I'm working on right now. Yeah, Leona Timber Company is saying here on his airbrush he's pulled the needle back slightly, and now it acts more like a single action airbrush. Exactly. You can move that needle a little bit so where basically as soon as you push the trigger it's going to start spraying paint, and you don't even have to barely pull back at all, and eliminate the sort of dual action function. And that's kind of more how I do it, because it's less effort, especially if you're going to be painting a lot, and you're going to be doing it for 10, 15, 20 minutes. You don't have to have the pressure of not only holding the thing down, but holding it back as well. Your finger starts to get tired. So you have it more where you just hold it down and barely holding it back at all, and it's putting out plenty of paint. So Clint says on the instructions they call for dark blue. I would say maybe on his cape, but not on his. I'm not sure if you're asking Clint about his tights or his cape. His tights, the main part of his suit was, to me, like I said, it looks more like a gray. I've got a Batman picture here, but it's just of his head. It doesn't have. It's on, a little picture of the whole group of them on my little bench here, but it doesn't show his costume. All it has is his face with his cowl. But that's the way I interpret it. Everybody sees colors a little bit different. Chris Farrell says he thinks it more looks like a little bit purple too. It's very subtle. It's more gray than it is purple to my eye, but there is a little bit of purple in there. And it makes sense because on that show they tried to do everything really colorful, They didn't use any like really dull colors. Everything was meant to grab your eye. Right, Jim Clark's talking about that there are several tutorials online, probably YouTube videos, written articles, that will help you with LED wiring. Parallel circuits work because they draw less current, and using a power supply, I usually don't worry too much about how much current I'm drawing, because I'll buy a power supply that's more important if you're going to run it on battery power. When you're running on something on battery power, you really want to be as efficient with everything as you can. But running a power supply on all my models like I do, I'll buy a power supply that's maybe an amp bigger than what it really needs to be, so I have plenty of juice, and I never, it's not right at the edge of its limit where it's working really hard and then getting hot. You know what I mean? The power supply will actually get hot, and of course that'll affect the lifespan on that too. The cooler it runs, the longer it's going to last. That's pretty much the common theme for any kind of electronics. If you get them hot, it's definitely not doing them any good. Paul Tommaso has to sign off. Okay, Paul, take care. We'll see you next time. Is anybody else seeing that the sound is off sync? Got one person here saying the sound is not coming out right for them. I have no way to check that here. I can't hear myself. If I put my own sound on, it's going to echo really bad. Yeah, James Frost is saying the current draw on each LED is approximately 0.20 milliamp. Multiply that by the number of LEDs in your model to get the total draw and select your power supply to match. That's exactly right. What I do here is I have a desktop power supply with a digital readout that shows me both my amps and my voltage. So when I finish working on a circuit, like when I've got everything wired in, that'll tell me how much power that's drawing overall. So then when I go to set up a power supply for it, get a power supply for it, I know exactly what I need when that whole circuit's all put together. If any of you guys out there are going to be doing a lot of this, if you get into this electronics and lighting models and everything, and you think you're going to be doing a lot of it, I would highly recommend that you buy a digitally controlled desktop power supply. They run around $40. This one I've got here is capable of going from 0 to 15 volts and up to 30 amps, which is plenty for this type of work. You'll never get anywhere close to 30 amps on this stuff. I mean, you'd be lucky to draw 1 amp on an entire lit up Enterprise model, or 1.5 amps. So, and that way you can test everything and see what you've got. One of the things that happens to some people is they go to start setting up a circuit and they use a little 9-volt battery or something like that, and they maybe sometimes don't realize that the battery is half dead, and so everything looks really dim and they can't figure out what's wrong, or it doesn't work at all because the battery's totally dead. Or like if it's a little bit dim and then you set your lights up to be a certain brightness, with your resistors and everything, you put a fully charged 9-volt battery in there and all of a sudden they're too bright. So the reason that you want to, if possible, use a power supply is that you're getting a constant. You want to work with a constant source so that it's, you can rely on it to be exactly the same every time with what you're working with. And as I said, they've gotten so inexpensive now. You can get this one I've got here. It's a nice little unit, and it does everything I want it to do. And it was like $40 with free shipping on eBay, so you can't beat that. I have so many of those Miranda kits, the Reliant kit over there. Who asked that? Because they went out of production and they were extremely hard to get, and I held on to them in case I had a client that wanted me to build one for him because you couldn't get the model. They're bringing it back. I'm not sure if it's on the market yet again, but it was Polar Lights quit making them for a couple of years, and they went from costing $30 to people were selling them on eBay for $150, and people were paying it because you couldn't get them anywhere else, and I didn't want to have my client have to pay that much if they decided they wanted one built. So that's I do this as a business, so I have to think about those kind of things a little bit different than if you're just doing it as a regular hobby. That's the Reliant is a popular ship, and there's always somebody wanting one of those. Bill, I had these T-shirts on the website for a little while through the Teespring. It's like a little campaign thing, and I'm gonna bring that back here pretty soon. So if you go check back in about a week or so over on our Google Model Shop community page, I'll put it at the very top. I'm gonna do another little T-shirt campaign because I've been getting quite a few messages about that too, where people want them. So we sold a bunch of them the first time around, and I think people had all they needed for now. So we let it go for about a year or so, and we'll run it again because now it seems like there's more people out there that want them, and they may have worn theirs out that they bought last year. So I'll definitely do that. We have them in different sizes and different colors. You can get it either in this black like I've got, or you can get it in the kind of charcoal gray, which I like the charcoal gray one a little bit better. I think it makes the colors on here look a little nicer. But they're good. I'm happy with these. I mean, they're good quality shirts. They seem to hold up pretty well. Um, I just wanted to mention too, for those of you who may not have heard or didn't hear me mention it last time, as you know, I attend the Fiesta Model Show every year here in San Antonio. It'll be coming up again this year well, actually next year in February. Um, so I'm planning on having a little get together here at the shop. We're going to do a little Texas style barbecue. Um, and so if any of you guys are planning on maybe attending the show, you're more than welcome. We'll all get together at the show and have a good time at the show and hang out all day. And then at the end of the show, we're going to head back over here and set up the old grill just outside the shop door here, and you guys can hang out in the shop. Maybe we'll even broadcast from the shop that night and have everybody on as guests. I think that would be really cool to have a nice group of people here. And we will have a good time. We'll do a little barbecue and just hang out. And so I mean, there will be a limit to how many people I can handle. I don't have a really big house. It's kind of a medium-sized house, but we can all hang out, and it should be pretty nice weather. We're in San Antonio, so it'd probably be around 70 degrees that day if it's like normal. So we'll have the shop door open here. We'll cook out right out in the front of the house here in the driveway, and get a bunch of chairs and tables and just sit around and talk models and have a great old time. So keep that in mind. I'll put something up about that on the page too. And I think it would be great to have all you guys come and visit. I met quite a few of you over the years, and you've all been really great people. And can't wait to see you all. That would be really fun. And I'm a pretty good barbecuer. I'm probably not as good as some of these guys on here. I see you guys talking about your recipes and stuff on here, but I do a pretty good barbecue, and I do it Texas style. So you guys can come down and get a little taste of Texas barbecue, and then see some really cool models at the show at the same time. and you can help me carry my models to my car. A couple guys did that for me last year, and I really appreciated that because, golly, I took too many models over there last time. I'm not going to take nearly that many this year. I went overboard. Just do a couple this year. Okay, guys, I'm going to comb through here one more time and see. We've got a question right here that just popped up from Herman Oliva. Nice to have you on, Herman. I think you might be new as well. What type gauge wire do you use for the lighting? Well, for the most part, Herman, I'm using this wire. It's called wire wrapping wire. It's a really fine wire. It's 30 gauge. It has a vinyl coating on it, and it's a solid core. It's not stranded wire. It's a solid core, and it's pretty much thin enough to get into anything you can think of on a model. For a long time, I was using what they call magnet wire, and it worked great. But I just found that it was kind of how's the best way to describe it? Kind of grabby and springy and everything like that. And when you had a lot of it in something, it was always getting tangled up and just wanting to grab a hold of everything when you're working with. This is much easier to work with. Now you got to strip this. You got to, but I just pull a little bit off with my fingernails usually, or a little side cutter or something like that, and just pull it right off of there. It strips really easy. You can get this through. I get mine at HDA Model Works. That's www.hda. I'll put that in the comment right now for you. .com. That's where I get it, and if you head over to that page, that's my good friend Jerry. He offers everything you can think of for your lighting needs. LEDs, SMDs, LED tape, and really, really good prices and good fast shipping. So that's what I use. And maybe if I have something that's going to have a lot of electronics in it, like a lot of stuff, I'll connect all the small stuff in there with that wire, and then maybe the main two power wires that come in, I may go to a little bit bigger gauge, like 24 gauge or something like that, and just for a little bit more capacity on the main power wire that's coming in. But that's basically it. These models don't draw any kind of current whatsoever, so that little tiny wire is more than enough to handle the load. They're never going to get hot or not be able to take it. We're dealing in milliamps here with this current that we're dealing with on most of this stuff. Yeah, the show here in San Antonio, it's disappointing. It's an IPMS sanctioned show. I wish it lasted more than a day, but they keep thinking about it. But the place that they have it in is a really big place, and it costs a lot of money to rent it. And that's why they keep telling us every year when we ask about it. They keep putting in every year to try to get the Nationals here, which I think they would do very well if they did, because San Antonio has a lot of stuff to do. It's a tourism town. We have a Six Flags here. We have a SeaWorld. We have all kinds of tourism stuff. If you brought your family down here, there'd be plenty for you to do besides the model show. And there's great food here. The weather's really nice at that time of the year. So we could have a good shot at getting that. They felt pretty confident that they might be able to get it one of these years, and that would be great, because if they did that, it would be a 3-day show. But even though it's only one day, most of the people that have been to it, that have been to other IPMS shows, tell me that this is one of the bigger shows around. It's a very big show. They have a big contest area, and they have a really nice sized vendor area, where you can find kits and parts and all kinds of stuff. It's in a nice, clean building and everything, and it's great. It keeps getting a little bit bigger every year, so they've been doing really well. Yeah, I couldn't handle all the members if they showed up, Eric. We'd have to rent a hall or something like that. Ralph says, let me know the date. So maybe Ralph would make it. He's way out on the East Coast, but that'd be great if you could come, Ralph. I'll definitely email you and let you know. I think somebody here mentioned the date. It's usually right around the middle of February. They may have posted. I've been waiting for them to post it, but I think somebody said it's the 17th of February this year. So yeah, maybe come down. There's all kinds of really nice hotels just within a short drive of the place, and I only live what, not even 3 miles away, just down the street basically from where they have it. So you wouldn't have to do a whole lot of driving and stuff, and um, I think it'd be a blast. Dennis Statler says he might be able to come. He's saving for his money for a trip down. That'd be great, Dennis. I know you've been on here a long time. Love to meet you. As I mentioned, I met Rick Dadnader, who's here tonight, and I've met several people over the years from the forums and from the groups, and they've all been really, really nice people, and we've just had a great time. A couple years ago when I went out to the Jersey Fest show, I met several of you out there, and we had a blast. Uh, how could it not be fun? We all love building models, and everybody gets along really good, and some good food to go along with that. What could be better? And it's BYB, in case you guys, you know what I mean. That's an old saying from back in the day. Some of you will get it. Um, okay, folks, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. Not seeing too many more questions. Apologize for everybody if I missed any of them. This thing scrolls by really, really fast, um, and I sometimes miss them. And if I missed anybody, shout out for tonight. I apologize for that too. We try to get everybody in there. Do see one more. Kelly Cooley is asking, have you thought about doing the round 2 DS9 kit? I've got that on my wish list, Kelly. I've got the kit, the clear version, and that is such an impressive model when it's done. But boy, that's a project to do all the lighting and do everything on that needs. That's something uh, that takes some time. So I'll have to schedule that one here. But I definitely look forward to building it one of these days. Looks like everybody's ready to sign off here, guys. So I'm going to do the same thing. Thanks for joining us tonight. Had a great time. If you're new, hop by over on our Google page. That's the Model Shop on the Google community. Doesn't cost you anything to join. All you got to do is just sign up and join in on the fun. You can start posting your pictures or asking questions. You'll find a really great group of people over there that are willing to help you, and we'd love to see your work. And we're interested in all kinds of modeling. People tend to think it's all sci-fi, but we've got another forum for that called Sci-Fi Model Action, where it's all sci-fi. The Model Shop is any kind of modeling you can think of. We've even got guys doing paper modeling in there, which is absolutely fantastic. You won't believe what you can do with paper models. So you guys take care. We'll catch up with you a week from Sunday. So we do this bi-weekly now. I keep getting confused on that myself, back at the same time, same channel. And we'll see you then. Good night, everybody. Until we see you next time, happy modeling, everybody.